Ladies and gentlemen, the following podcast is set for one episode. Your host from Columbus, Ohio, is Michael Kirk. Welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast. Hello and welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast, your digital audio dirt sheet for all things Super Show. And on this special episode of the Outlaw Mudcast, the third in a series, we have looked at the first box set in the Kickstarter Going Over campaign, Rainbow Girl versus Terror Skull. We've looked at the second box set, Black Lipstick versus Cryptocurrency. And now we're looking at the faction pack that was available in the all-in tier of the Kickstarter campaign, the highest tier before the create a card and create a competitor tiers. This is the faction pack known as the Family. So, we are going to go over the 1 through 27 deck in this faction pack. We're also going to go over the 4 single competitors in this faction pack. Polly the Pigeon Bacone, the Italian Mambata, Lorenzo Manicotti, and Maria Marinara, as well as the 2 Tornado Tag Team cards in the set, Bird Bada and Manicotti Marinara. So let's dive right into the 1 through 27 cards. We're going to go through these in sets of 3. Alright, let's start with cards numbers 1, 2, and 3, the lead strike, lead grapple, lead submission. These are very common cards, the Snap Punch, Arm and Collar Tie-Up, and Snap Headlock. These each stop any lead, grapple, submission, or strike, and each player draws 1 card. Again, these cards have been in the game for a long time. The difference is this is an alt-art. All 3 of these cards are alt-art cards. They all feature comic book art from Kieran Squires. And they actually all feature the Masked Llama quite prominently in every card. So the first 3 cards are just alt-art versions of cards already in the game. The Snap Punch, Arm and Collar Tie-Up, and Snap Headlock. 4, 5, and 6 are also cards that are already in the game. We have Haymaker Punch, Neck Drop, and Arm Tangle, the lead strike, lead grapple, and lead submission. They all have the same wording except for the skill. On the strike card, the wording is draw 1 card. If your strike skill is greater than your opponent's strike skill, draw 2 cards instead. The Neck Drop has the grapple instead of strike, and the Arm Tangle has submission instead of strike. Again, this is also featuring alt art. These are, again, comic book art on each one of these. And I actually skipped the keywords. When we go back through the keywords, of course, there's tons of keywords. Snap, punch, arm, head, lock in the first 3, punch in the 4th, drop in the 5th, arm in the 6th. I've talked about all the different players that trigger off that. Snap with Mr. Snap and Marty Skrull. Head with tons of people. Hallow King. I believe Sammy Draw Callahan's finishes trigger off head. Arm, of course, a 49er Arm Grinder from the Gold Standard. Drop, TJ Marconi and Mark F. and Perry. So a lot of keywords in the first 6. 7 through 9, all of our new cards. Again, lead strike, lead grapple, lead submission. They all have the same text. The lead strike is the back smash. The lead grapple is slam off the ring. And the lead submission is split finger gouge. Text on all of them is, you may reroll your next turn roll, or your tag team partner draws 1 card. So each one of these has an effect that will work in multiplayer tag. Similar to cards like Hot Tag, where you play the card and it allows your partner to do something. These you can play and allow your partner to draw. You can also just elect to re-roll your next turn roll. Keyword-wise, we've got back in the lead strike. So Hallow King, slam off the mat in the lead grapple. So Mayor of Slamtown, Johnny Super Show, or Steve Slambros. There is no split or finger or gouge at this point, maybe someday in the future, but no keywords off the submission. On to the next set. The lead strike, grapple, and submission numbers 10, 11, 12. These also all have the same text. They are, in order, Rabbit Punch, Charging Takedown, and The Numbers Game. Each one says if you have another lead in play, draw one card, and your tag team partner draws one card. So already starting to see a theme where these, when you play them, will allow you to do something and your tag team partner do something. Of course, Rabbit Punch has punch. It's going to work with Polly the Pigeon Picone, Gideon Guts. That's the only real keyword I see on these three. Again, this, like all the cards so far, they all have had comic book art. So it's been a very heavy Kieran Squires art deck. And we're going to continue that theme with the 13 through 15. The first set of follow-ups, the follow-up strike, follow-up grapple, and follow-up submission. We have the spinning heel kick, the heel sweep, and the heel hook. So these are cards that did exist in the game, but they are now alt art. They each have the same text. Your opponent flips 2 cards. You may bury 2 cards in your opponent's discard pile. Kick, of course, the keyword with TJ Marconi. This you have a heel sweep. Sweep, I believe, is a keyword with the Mad Custodian, and that's it keyword-wise. Let's move on to the 16 through 18, next set of follow-ups. Again, going from strike to submission, we have the Blindside Punch, the Hurricane Slam, and Ride the Ropes. Each one of these, again, has the same text, and again, it's tag team feature. If you have another follow-up in play, draw one card, and your tag team partner draws one card. So these are the follow-up versions of the leads we saw at 10, 11, and 12. Again, going through here, keyword-wise, we have punch again on the 16, slam on the 17. We have Ride the Ropes. We have a submission with rope in the name, which does work with the Salty Sailors finish, the submission finish. Keywords off of cards that have rope or not in the name. So you have that. Again, I'm liking this as very big tag team friendly deck so far. Now I'll move on to 19 through 21. Again, these are alt art cards. These cards already exist in the game. Going strike, grapple, submission order. We have standing sidekick, full Nelson slam, and spinning arm block. They each have the same text, which the normal version has. Shuffle one card from your discard pile into your deck. If you have fewer cards in play than your opponent, this card is also a lead. Like all the cards, they are all featuring Kieran Squires art. Keywords, you've got kick on the strike. You have slam on the follow-up grapple. You also have full Nelson, which works with one of Matt Travis's finishes. And then you have arm and lock on the follow-up submission. So that's the 19 through 21. Now we're going to go to the 22 through 24. This is an alt-art version of the famous Lariat series. We have the 360 Lariat, the Lariat Takedown, and the Lariat Knot. Text many of us are familiar with. Flip one card. Take 2 cards from your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. Draw 2 cards. And then this will be the common imprint version of these cards going forward. The previous cards featuring art by Michael, I believe it's pronounced Mullapola, the man known as Liger, drew the original Lariat set. This will be replacing the Lariat set as the imprint version of those cards. That ends our follow-ups. We have the last set of leads. The lead strike, grapple, and submission. We have the lunge punch at 25, the reckless throw at 26, and the diving choke at 27. Each one says the same text with only the card type difference. The strike says if this is a tag team match, stop and you grapple. Your tag team partner draws one card. The grapple version of this stops any submission, and the submission version stops any strike, but otherwise the text is exactly the same. So again, these allow your tag team partner to draw cards. So this deck is pretty much tailor-made for multiplayer tag. Keyword-wise, we have punch, of course, in the lead strike, and then we have choke in the lead submission. I believe choke is a keyword that the Witch's Apprentice can use. This is a very stoplight deck. Other than basically we have the first 3 leads and the last 3 leads. Cards 1, 2, 3, and 25, 26, and 27 are the only stops in this deck. So it's a very stoplight deck, and it's got a lot of cards to help your tag team partner out if you're playing in multiplayer tag. I'm a big fan of this deck. I think it's quite a nice deck. I'm going through and looking at the art before I move on. I'm noticing that while this is in the family faction pack, there are not a lot of members of the family featured in here. I believe the only one I'm seeing normally is Polly the Pigeon Pacone. Outside of that, a lot of Masked Llama on these. But I like these cards. A lot of good possibilities in here. And again, with multiplayer tag, I can see a lot of these cards getting used. So, let's go through the competitors. I'm going to start with the competitor I went through previously when he was spoiled. And I originally compared him to the old version because the gimmick was different. I'm not going to worry about that here. I'm just going to go through this particular version's skills, gimmick, and then finishes. We're talking about, of course, Lorenzo Manicotti. Here are his skills. Here is his gimmick. He has a power 6, technique 5, agility 8, strike 10, submission 7, grapple 9. The gimmick is after you shuffle your deck, your opponent shuffles one card from their hand into their deck. So a nice gimmick. Of course, there are cards that allow you to shuffle directly. We talked about 3 of those earlier, the Lariat series. You also have any card that's going to let you search your deck will allow you to shuffle, because whenever you search your deck, you will shuffle afterwards. Not a bad gimmick. I think it's a little, if I remember correctly, it's a little bit of an improvement. It's slightly different than the previous gimmick. And the finishes are all the same, but I'll just go ahead and go over them. We'll start with the strike, finish number 28, Greetings from Sunnyside. +3 to technique, +1 to agility. Each player shuffles their hand into their deck, then draws the same number of cards. So with Manicotti, it's going to bump his technique from 5 to 8, and his agility from 8 to a 9. So we'll give him a 10, 2 9s, an 8, a 7, and a 6. Not bad, skill-wise. And the text of this finish will trigger his gimmick. So after each player shuffles their hand into the deck and then draws the same number of cards, your opponent will then have to shuffle an additional card that he just drew back into his deck. Alright, we'll look at the finished grapple number 29, Al Dente Bomb. +3 to power. If your opponent breaks out, you may shuffle this card in your deck and draw one card. Probably should say into, but +3 to power is going to bump your 6 to a 9, so give you 10, 2 9s, an 8, a 7, and a 5. Actually very similar to the skill numbers from the strike finish. And again, this will also trigger your gimmick when you shuffle. If your opponent breaks out, when you shuffle this into your deck, they'll have to shuffle a card from their hand into their deck. And the finish submission number 30, the last finish for Lorenzo Manicotti, the 5 Burrows Chokehold, +1 to power, +3 to technique, +1 to submission. Shuffle 2 cards from your discard pile into your deck and draw 1 card. Again, this will trigger your gimmick, so it'll make your opponent have to shuffle a card from his hand into his deck. +1 to power will raise your power from a 6 to a 7. +3 to technique will raise your 5 to an 8. And +1 to submission will raise your 7 to an 8. So it'll give you a 7, 3 8s, a 9, and a 10. That's probably the best skill boosts of these 3 finishes. But that was Lorenzo Manicotti. I think next we're going to go ahead and cover Polly the Pigeon Picone. Before I move on from Lorenzo Manicotti, let me just go over the skill stops. I usually do that, and I just neglect to in this case. Of course, Manicotti's got a strike of 10, so running Lariat would be great. He has a grapple of 9, so DDT. And his agility is an 8, so again, if you're running Lariat, you're not going to run Kick in the Corner. But that's him. Let's get on to Polly the Pigeon Picone. Here are his skills and his gimmick. He's a Power 7, Technique 6, Agility 8, Strike 10, Submission 9, Grapple 5. When you roll Strike for your turn roll, search your deck for one card with Punch in the name and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. So again, Strike 10, like I just said a moment ago, running Lariat, Submission 9, Bow and Arrow would be your stops you're playing at 13 and 15. Again, he's also Agility 8, so again, you're not playing Kick in the Corner if you're playing running Lariat. Here are his finishes. You have the Finish Strike, number 28, the Dead Man's Hand, +1 to Agility, +2 to Power. If you hit a card with Punch in the name last turn, this card cannot be stopped. Skill bonus wise, +1 to Agility, bumps his Agility from an 8 to a 9, +2 to Power, bumps the Power from a 7 to a 9, so it'd be 5, 6, 3 9s, and a 10. Pretty good. I like that a lot. And of course, beat a card with Punch in the name last turn, so you either win the turn, play a card with Punch, and then play this, or if you happen to, your opponent won the last turn, you hit a stop, like say your lead strike number 1 Punch, and then you win the turn roll after that, you can play this, and it's unstoppable. Next, we're going to look at the Finished Grapple, number 28, the Bank Breaker. +3 to Technique, +4 to Grapple. Add 2 cards with Punch in the name from your discard pile to your hand. So +3 to Technique will bump your Technique from a 6 to a 9. +4 to Grapple will bump your Grapple from a 5 to a 9. So it's going to be 7, 8, 3 9s, and a 10. Also pretty good, a little bit better skill-wise than Dead Man's Hand. And then adding 2 cards with Punch in your name for your discard your hand is good. A lot of good cards out there with Punch in the name. And then the Finish Submission, number 30, the Sicilian Necktie, +3 to Technique, +1 to Submission. Each time your opponent rolls for a breakout, they bury 1 random card in their hand. So, +3 to Technique will bump your Technique from a 6 to a 9. You'll bump your Submission from a 9 to a 10. So you'll have 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10. I'd say it's comparable to the Finished Strike. I think I like the Bank Breaker's skill boasts best of all. And then, of course, your opponent's going to bury 1 random card in their hand each time they roll for the breakout. So they're going to be burying minimum 1, maximum 3, assuming you're doing 3 breakout rolls. That is Polly the Pigeon Picone, pretty similar to the previous Picone that's been out there. Now let's move on to the Italian Bombata. Here are the skills and the gimmick for the Italian Bombata. Power 7, Technique 9, Agility 5, Strike 6, Submission 10, Grapple 8. And the gimmick is when your opponent's turn roll is Submission, search your deck for 1 lead or follow-up submission, reveal it, and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. So they've added the shuffle text, which wasn't there before. It's always been a rule that when you search your deck, you shuffle afterwards. But this is just sort of adding text to make it clear that you will definitely shuffle your deck after searching. And of course, this gimmick got better with the addition of, and I believe the name of the card is the Atomic Chicken Wing, to the game. The Atomic Chicken Wing is a skill card that you need an 8 or greater submission to run. It's a lead submission, and it says if the card Hyper, Forearm, Kicker, Hold, Choke is in play. This card's also Finish. Both of those cards are lead submissions, so your deck will be able to go search for those cards, add them to your hand, and then you'll be able to play that as a lead and then a finish if necessary to give yourself a finish with only 2 cards. Always strong when you can do that. Now, of course, there are no skill bonuses, but you can always roll 10. Crowd meter 1, you can always roll 11. So there's nothing wrong with rolling with no skill bonuses. Sometimes you can win games like that. Again, with the Italian Bombata, he's got a submission of 10, so bow and arrow is probably the card you're playing at 15. With a technique of 9, you're probably not playing another stop based on your skills. Because, you've got a grapple 8, you could maybe play a DDT there, but I'm thinking just going 1. Here are his finishes. We'll start with the finish strike, number 28, the finish line. +2 to strike, +2 to power. Take all submission cards from your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. Draw 1 card. So +2 to strike will bump your strike from a 6 to an 8. +2 to power, bump your power from a 7 to a 9. So it'll give you a 5, 2 8s, 2 9s, and a 10. I like that a lot. The finished grapple is the Bombata Bomb. It's +1 to agility, +2 to grapple. Add 1 submission you have in play to your hand. So it's going to bump your agility from a 5 to a 6, and your grapple from an 8 to a 10. So it'll give you 2 6s, 7, 9, and 2 10s. Not bad. Now there is a change here. The original grapple finish for the Italian Bombata was called Bombata Bing. It had the same skill boost, but with the numbers reversed. So on the Bombata Bomb, it is read to you, it's +1 to agility, +2 to grapple. On the Bombata Bing, it's +2 to agility and +1 to grapple. So with the original Bombata finish, the Bombata Bing, you'd have an agility of 7 and a grapple of 9. So you'd have 6, 2 7s, 2 9s, and a 10. I like the skill boosts on the Bombata Bomb better. The effect is also different. The effect on the Bombata Bing is bury all submissions in your opponent's discard pile. In Bombata Bomb, it's add 1 submission you haven't played to your hand. So I actually like the Bombata Bomb better than Bombata Bing, but there is a difference there. And then the finish submission, number 30, the winner's circle. If your opponent's turn roll was submission, this card cannot be stopped. Your opponent's submission skill is -2 during their first and second breakout rolls. So potentially an unstoppable finish, and it reduces your opponent's submission skill by 2 during the first 2 breakout rolls. I think of all the finishes, I like this one the least. But that's the Italian Bombata. And now let's move on to the brand new competitor set. Appearing for the first time, Maria Marinera. Here are the skills and the gimmick for Maria Marinera. Power 7, Technique 10, Agility 6, Strike 8, Submission 9, Grapple 5. When you roll Technique for your turn roll, you may put the bottom card of your deck or your opponent's deck on top of their deck. Of course, your Technique skill is a 10, so you're probably going to be running, I believe, a single leg crab. And then with a 9, you're not going to run bow and arrow. You might think about running lyric with a strike of 8, but probably not. And then, of course, with this gimmick, if you're rolling Technique, you're rolling a 10, so you're almost certainly winning the turn roll. Unless, of course, you bump or your opponent has some kind of turn roll boost that gives them over a 10. But you can put the bottom card of your deck on top of your deck, which means you can draw the bottom card of your deck. Or if you've made your opponent bury something that's not very good, you can put that on top of their deck and make them draw something that's not good. There's quite a number of scenarios where you can roll your Technique and do some things. Let's go through her finishers. We'll start with the finish strike. Number 28, the bottom deal. +2 to agility, +1 to strike. Draw the bottom card of your deck. So this is going to bump your agility to an 8 and a strike to a 9. So it'll give you a 5, 7, 8, 9, 9, 10. Skill bonus aren't bad, and you'll be able to draw the bottom card of your deck. The Finished Grapple for Maria Marinera is the House Edge. It's a Spotlight card, number 29. +1 to agility, +3 to grapple. When this card is in your discard pile, and your opponent adds any number of cards from their discard pile to their hand, your next turn roll is +2. This can be a very, very good card. There are a lot of competitors that have gimmicks that allow you to add cards from discard to your hand. I'm thinking of people like King Greatness. I want to say Joey Janela does that. I want to say Sean Spears does that. A lot of competitors that have gimmicks or effects or cards. Seven Seals, Alien Invasion. Those all allow you to add cards from discard pile to your hand. This is your finish. This is in your discard pile. You get +2 to your next turn roll when they do that. And since we mentioned that this will actually be a finish that's eligible for the printed tag team of Manicotti Marinera, if you're playing a competitor like the Young Bucks, this would give you a bonus when their gimmick is triggered. +1 to agility is going to give her a 7 where she normally has a 6 in agility, and it's going to give her an 8 where she normally has a 5. So it gives her 2 7s, 2 8s, a 9, and a 10. It's not a bad array of skill bonuses. Then finally, finish submission number 30, Sleeping with the 7 Fishes. +2 to power, +2 to grapple. Bury 3 cards in any player's discard pile. So it's going to bump the power to a 9 and the grapple to a 7. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 10. Again, this is all a decent array of skill boosts for Maria Marinera. And then bearing 3 cards in a player's discard pile can always be good. Especially if you're playing somebody like Scarlet Graves, you can get rid of that strike finish that blanks your gimmick. Any spotlight cards you can bury. Any finishes you don't want your opponent to get back, you can bury. Quite a lot of good cards. A lot of good options you have with Sleeping with 7 Fishes. But that's Maria Marinera. And now let's go through the 2 Tornado Tag cards. Since I just brought it up, let's start with Manicotti Marinera. Power 10, Technique 18, Agility 12, Strike 16, Submission 20, Grapple 14. After a player shuffles their deck, draw the bottom 2 cards of your deck. So definitely a hybrid based on both of their gimmicks. I like this a lot. It's going to let you draw 2 cards instead of 1. That's really nice. Submission of 20. So bow and arrow there. Again, with that technique of 18, you're not really running a second stop in the 13 through 15s. Let's look at how these finishes work with Manicotti Marinera. Let me go through the Manicotti finishes first. So the +3 to technique, +1 to agility from Greetings from Sunnyside, number 28, the finish strike. Each player shuffles their hand to their deck, then draws the same number of cards. +3 to technique will give you a technique of 21, and it will give you an agility of 13. So 10, 13, 14, 16, 20, 21. So it will give you a victory if you roll that technique at crowd minus 0. If you roll that 21, unless they have a way of raising their skills or breakout rolls above 20, you will get a win if you roll technique there. Again, both players are going to have to shuffle their hands to their decks and draw the same number of cards. And then, of course, because of your gimmick, you'll be able to draw the bottom 2 cards of your deck. And actually, and this is kind of interesting, and I hadn't thought about this, so I just looked at it now. It just says after a player shuffles their deck. So this could be if you shuffle your deck. This could be if your opponent shuffles their deck. Either one is going to trigger your gimmick. So you can trigger your gimmick on your own shuffle or on your opponent's shuffle. So that could be a really nice, you're going to have to see a lot of drawing going on there. All right, next the Finish Grapple from Lorenzo Manicotti, the Al Dente Bomb, +3 to power. If your opponent breaks out, you may shuffle this card in your deck and draw one card. So if they break out, this will allow you to draw not only one card from the breakout from the text, but from your gimmick, you'll draw an additional 2 off the bottom. Plus 3 to power is going to bump your power from a 10 to a 13. So 12, 13, 14, 16, 18, 20. It's okay. The finish submission number 30, the 5 Burrows Chokehold. Plus 1 to power, plus 3 to technique, plus 1 to submission. Shuffle 2 cards from your discard pile in your deck and draw 1 card. So with your gimmick, you'll not only draw 1 card from the shuffle, but then you'll draw the bottom 2 of your deck. Plus 1 to power bumps your power from a 10 to 11. Plus 3 to technique bumps your 18 to a 21. Plus 1 to submission bumps your submission from 20 to a 21. So 11, 12, 14, 16, and 221. So you have a 1 in 3 shot when you roll your finish of rolling and finish that your opponent almost certainly will not break out of. So that's very good there. And again, all these are going to trigger your gimmick and allow you to draw quite a few cards. I like this as a nice draw engine. Quite nice. Let's look at the Maria Marinara finishes now. We'll start with the finish strike, number 28, the bottom deal. Plus 2 to agility, plus 1 to strike. Draw the bottom card of your deck. That's going to bump your agility from a 12 to a 14 and your strike from a 16 to a 17. So 10 to 14, 17, 18, 20. It's alright. The grapple, plus 1 to agility, plus 3 to grapple. When this card is in your discard pile and your opponent adds any number of cards from the discard pile to hand, your next turn roll is plus 2. So again, plus 1 to agility is going to bump your agility from a 12 to a 13. It's going to bump your grapple from a 14 to a 17. So 10, 13, 16, 17, 18, 20. It's alright, but I think the plus 2 to your turn rolls, when your opponent adds a card from your discard to your hand, when that's in the discard pile, is a good reason to run the house edge. And then the submission, sleeping with the 7 fishes, plus 2 to power, plus 2 to grapple, bury 3 cards in any player's discard pile. So bump your 10 to a 12 and your 14 to a 16. So 2 12s, 2 16s, an 18 and a 20. It's alright. Probably the best skill arrangement of all of them. And of course there's always, since it's a tag team card, you can always run double death drop. It'll give you 2 16s, 2 18s, a 14 and a 20. That might be the best skill boost of all of them. But I do like the gimmick on Manikali Marinara quite a lot. Now let's move on to the other tornado tag card in this set, Bird Bada. Power 16, Technique 14, Agility 10, Strike 18, Submission 20, Grapple 12. So the Submission 20, you're looking at bow and arrow. Strike of 18, you're looking at running lariat. So you can run 2 cards that will stop in the 13 through 15 slots. The gimmick is when you hit a card to punch in the name, you may add 1 submission you have in play to your hand or shuffle 1 submission from your discard pile into your deck. So that's a nice effect too. I like that gimmick a lot. Let's go through the finishes. I'll start with the Italian Mambadas finishes. So we have for the Italian Mambata the finish strike number 28, the finish line plus 2 to strike, plus 2 to power. Take all submission cards from your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. Draw 1 card. So with those 2 pluses, it is going to bump your power from a 16 to an 18 and your strike from an 18 to a 20. So you have a 10, 12, 14, 18, 20, 20. I like that. The grapple, I'll give you the new grapple and then the old grapple. The new grapple is the Bombada Bomb. It is the plus 1 to agility, plus 2 to grapple. Add 1 submission you haven't played to your hand. That's going to bump your agility from a 10 to an 11. And your grapple from a 12 to a 14. So you'll have 11 to 14, 16, 18, 20. It's not bad. The original Italian Bombada finish, the Bombada Bing, plus 2 to agility, plus 1 to grapple will give you 12, 13, 14, 16, 18, 20. And this will bury all submissions in your opponent's discard pile. It's alright. And then the finish submission, the winner's circle. If your opponent's turn roll was submission, this card cannot be stopped. Your opponent's submission skill is -2 during their first and second breakout rolls. Again, it's okay. It's half as strong as it is in the singles because a -2 is the equivalent of a -1 in a tornado tag. But those are the finishes for the Italian Bada. Let's look at the finishes for Polly the Pigeon Picone with Bird Bada. Start with the finish strike, number 28, Dead Man's Hand. Plus 1 to agility, plus 2 to power. If you hit a card with punch the name last turn, this card cannot be stopped. So 1 to agility will raise your agility from a 10 to an 11. And 2 to power will raise your power from a 16 to 18. So 11, 12, 14, 18, 18, 20. Okay. The grapple for Polly the Pigeon Picone is the Bank Breaker, number 29, plus 3 to technique, plus 4 to grapple. Add 2 cards with punch in the name from your discard pile to your hand. So plus 3 to technique will bump your technique from a 14 to a 17. And plus 4 to grapple will bump your grapple from 12 to a 16. So 10, 16, 16, 17, 18, 20. That's probably my favorite boost so far of all of these. And then the Sicilian Necktie, the finish submission number 30, plus 3 to technique, plus 1 to submission each time your opponent rolls for a breakout. They bury 1 random card in their hand. Plus 3 to technique is going to raise your technique from a 14 to a 17 and give you a 21 instead of the 20 in submission. The stat bonus is a little bit better than the winner's circle, so I'd probably run that over the winner's circle. It does give you that 21, so at a crowd mean 0, you have a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a finish that they almost certainly can't break out of. But yeah, those are the cards, the competitor sets, the 1 through 27 deck for the faction pack known as the Family. And that's going to be it for this series. I've enjoyed doing this series quite a lot, going through these cards. Of course, this isn't all the cards that came out in the Kickstarter. There's still 2 cards we don't know anything about, 2 competitor sets, that is. Kempo Kenny and the Duke. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on with those 2 competitor sets. Those were available in the first and second tier, the singles match, and the double or nothing tier. But yeah, this is the all-in tier. This is the Family Faction Pack. And that's all I have to say about this. I hope you've enjoyed the series. Thank you to all of you for listening, and good day.